Oil-stained hands work methodically under a car's hood in the fading light of day. Mike Reynolds pauses, wiping sweat from his brow with a sleeve already darkened by grease. At 35, his weathered face tells the story of countless hours, spent bent over engines, chasing electrical gremlins, and keeping ancient machines alive. The final notice bills scattered across his desk paint a grimmer picture, one of a dying business in a world that's moving too fast. As twilight settles over the modest garage, fate rolls in on four wheels. A luxury sedan limps onto his lot, smoke billowing from beneath its hood. Behind the wheel sits Helen Porter, her silver hair and gentle demeanor masking decades of corporate acumen. Mike sees only an elderly woman in need, not the CEO of Porter Industries, one of America's largest technology companies. What happens next will change both their lives forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Mike reaches for his father's socket wrench set, the tools worn smooth from 3 decades of faithful service. Each piece tells a story. The 10mm socket his father used to teach him timing belt replacements, the ratchet handle that helped rebuild his first engine. As he approaches the smoking luxury car, memories of simpler times flutter at the edges of his consciousness. "Mom, let me help you get that parked properly," he calls out, guiding Helen's Mercedes into the bay. The check engine light glows accusingly on the dashboard, and the distinct smell of burning oil fills the air. Helen steps out carefully, her movements deliberate but graceful. "I was hoping to make it to Riverside Automotive," she admits, gesturing toward the gleaming modern facility 2 blocks down. "But your place was closer." Mike swallows his pride. He's lost enough customers to Riverside's iPad diagnostics and waiting room lattes. "Well, you're in luck. This is where cars come to get fixed right, not just fixed fast." A clatter from the back room draws their attention. Tommy Martinez, Mike's 16-year-old apprentice, emerges with an armload of filters. "Got those organized by size like you asked, Mr. Reynolds." The boy's eyes widen at the sight of the Mercedes. "Whoa, thanks, Tommy. Why don't you grab the diagnostic scanner?" Mike turns back to Helen. "Mind if I take a look?" Helen nods, watching with quiet interest as Mike opens the hood. His movements are precise, methodical, a craftsman's choreography learned through years of practice. Tommy returns with their scanner, an older model but reliable. Mike connects it while explaining each step to the teen. "See how the vacuum readings are irregular? That tells us intake manifold gasket," Tommy ventures. Mike grins. "Getting a sharp kid. But let's not jump to conclusions. Remember what my dad always said? Listen to the engine, not just the computer." They recite together. Helen settles into a worn waiting room chair, observing their easy rapport. The walls around her tell their own story. Faded certificates, old photos of cars restored, a proudly displayed ASE certification. Through the office window, she notices the stack of bills on Mike's desk, red warnings visible even from a distance. Mike runs through his diagnostic routine, muscle memory guiding his hands, while his mind catalogues symptoms. The Mercedes is a recent model, its engine bay a maze of electronics and carefully engineered systems. But underneath all the modern complexity, the basic principles remain unchanged. Principles his father taught him on countless Saturday mornings in this very garage. "Tommy, grab my borescope from the special tools cabinet," Mike calls out. "The one Dad got from that parts supplier back in '92. As Tommy scrambles to comply, Helen speaks up. "You mentioned your father several times. Did he start this business?" Mike nods, his hands still working. "Reynolds and Son Auto Repair, though it was just Reynolds Auto before I could walk. Dad believed in doing things right, building trust. These days..." He glances toward Riverside Automotive's neon sign, visible through the shop window. "Well, let's just say the industry's changed." "Not everything needs to change," Helen offers, her voice carrying a weight Mike doesn't yet understand. "Some principles are timeless. The diagnostic process continues as the afternoon light fades. Tommy absorbs every detail, asking questions that reveal a sharp mind behind his youthful enthusiasm. Helen watches it all, her expression thoughtful. When Mike finally straightens up, his diagnosis is complete. He knows what needs to be done, and he knows it won't be cheap. The moment of truth approaches, the same moment he's faced countless times before, telling a customer the cost of keeping their vehicle on the road, knowing they might choose the flashier shop down the street instead, but there's a car to fix. And that's what Reynolds and Son has always done, regardless of the outcome. Mike wipes his hands on a shop rag, takes a deep breath, and turns to face Helen with his assessment. Mike's eyes drift to the faded dollar bill mounted in a simple frame behind his desk. His father's first earned dollar, preserved behind glass, that hadn't been cleaned in years. The edges are worn, George Washington's face barely visible, but the principle it represents remains clear as day. Honest work for honest pay. The intake manifold gasket has failed, he begins, watching Helen's face for reaction. It's letting oil leak into places it shouldn't. That's causing the smoke you saw. But that's not the real problem. He pauses, choosing his words carefully. The oil leak damaged the catalytic converter. In a car like this, with the integrated exhaust manifold, well, it's not a simple fix. Helen nods, her expression neutral. And the cost? Mike does the mental calculations, knowing Riverside would charge almost double. But their fancy digital systems would say the same thing his decades of experience just told him. Parts and labor, you're looking at $4,800. Tommy, still hovering nearby, tries to hide his wince. It's more than most of their regular customers' cars are worth. I understand if you'd like a second opinion, Mike adds, gesturing toward Riverside's neon sign. They've got all the latest diagnostic equipment. I didn't ask about their equipment, Helen says quietly. I asked you. The response catches Mike off guard. He's used to customers balking at prices, demanding itemized breakdowns, or simply walking out. Helen's calm acceptance feels almost unsettling. I can start first thing tomorrow, he offers. Should take about 3 days to do it right. 3 days? She raises an eyebrow. Riverside advertises same-day service. They do. Mike's jaw tightens slightly, but rushing a job like this, well, let's just say I wouldn't recommend it. Tommy, who's been absorbing every word, pipes up. Mr. Reynolds always says, do it right or don't do it at all. Helen finishes, surprising them both. My father was fond of that saying too. She stands, smoothing her simple dress. 3 days is fine, Mr. Reynolds. I trust your judgment. The words hang in the air, weighted, with something Mike can't quite identify. He watches as Helen makes a phone call for a ride, then turns to Tommy. Start cleaning up, kid. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. As they close up shop, Mike's eye catches the past due stamp on one of his bills, its red ink seemingly brighter in the fading light. The Mercedes job would cover this month's expenses, maybe even put a dent in their outstanding balance. But something about Helen's easy acceptance nags at him. Tommy's voice breaks through his thoughts. Mr. Reynolds, can I come in early tomorrow? I want to see how you remove the intake manifold on a modern Mercedes. Mike smiles despite his worries. The kid reminds him so much of himself at that age. Hungry to learn, eager to prove himself. 7 a.m. sharp, don't be late. After Tommy leaves, Mike sits at his desk, staring at his father's framed dollar bill. The faded green paper seems to mock him now, a relic of a time when things were simpler, when honest work and fair prices were enough to keep a business alive. He pulls out his ledger. Actual paper, not the fancy accounting software Riverside uses. The numbers don't lie. Even with the Mercedes job, they're barely treading water. The property taxes are due next month, and the tool truck payment. A soft knock interrupts his calculations. Helen stands in the doorway, her ride apparently arrived. I forgot to ask, she says. Do you offer a senior discount? Mike looks up, startled. He hasn't had anyone ask about discounts in years. Most customers just demand them outright. We used to, but with costs these days. Because I'd prefer you didn't, she continues as if he hadn't spoken. Good work deserves fair compensation, Mr. Reynolds. I'll see you in the morning. She's gone before he can respond, leaving him with a strange feeling that he's missed something important. Outside, a sleek town car pulls away. Surprisingly, high-end for someone asking about senior discounts. Mike shakes his head, returning to his ledger. One job at a time, his father always said. Do good work, be honest, and the rest will follow. But in a world of same-day service and waiting room, lattes, he's no longer sure that's enough. Dawn finds Mike already at work. The Mercedes' engine partially disassembled. His attention catches on Helen's personal effects. A simple pearl necklace left draped over the rearview mirror. Something about it seems off, though he can't quite place why. The pearls look ordinary enough, but there's a weight to them, a quality that whispers of hidden value. Tommy arrives exactly at 7, practically bouncing with enthusiasm. Morning, Mr. Reynolds. I brought coffee. Thanks, kid. Mike accepts. The paper cup, noting the Riverside Automotive logo with a raised eyebrow. Tommy blushes. Their machine was broken, so they had to make it fresh. The barista said it's the first time in months. Before Mike can respond, his phone rings. The bank. He steps into his office, closing the door. The conversation is brief, but crushing. His loan application has been denied. Again. Through the window, he watches Tommy carefully organizing tools, following the system Mike's father established decades ago. The kid's got good instincts, a natural feel for machines. If only that were enough anymore. A sleek town car pulls up outside, the same one from yesterday. Helen emerges, now wearing a crisp blouse and slacks, though still understated. She moves toward the customer waiting area, but pauses, pulling out a phone that looks far more expensive than her modest appearance would suggest. James? Yes, I got your messages. No, the board meeting will have to wait. Yes, I understand the shareholders are concerned. Her voice carries authority that wasn't there yesterday. The development project is proceeding as planned. I'm conducting personal research. No, I don't need security here. Mike pretends to focus on paperwork, but his mind races. The pieces don't quite fit. The luxury car, the high-end phone, the town car service, all wrapped in deliberately modest packaging. Helen ends her call, smoothly transitioning back into the gentle persona from yesterday. But Mike has spent his life reading subtle signs, diagnosing problems from the smallest irregularities. Something bigger is happening here. Tommy, he calls out, walk me through what you see in the engine bay. The boy launches into a detailed analysis, his observations surprisingly thorough. Helen drifts closer, listening with apparent interest. The computer shows 3 fault codes, Tommy explains. But like you taught me, they're probably symptoms, not the root cause. Good. What else? The wear pattern on the manifold suggests... Tommy hesitates, then finds his confidence. Suggests it's been running rich for a while, probably compensating for the vacuum leak. Helen interjects, you've taught him well. He came preloaded with talent, Mike replies. I just help him refine it. A notification chimes on Helen's phone, something about quarterly projections. She silences it quickly, but not before Mike catches a glimpse of the screen. The email header reads, Porter Industries Executive Board. The pieces start clicking together. He's seen that name recently in an article about downtown development. Porter Industries, the tech giant buying up properties all along this stretch. A road. His thoughts are interrupted by another customer arriving, Mrs. Chen from the flower shop, her ancient Volvo making familiar noises. Tommy? Get started on Mrs. Chen's power steering pump, Mike instructs. Remember what we discussed about Swedish engineering? Everything's backward and nothing makes sense. Exactly. As Tommy helps Mrs. Chen, Mike continues working on the Mercedes, his mind churning. Helen maintains her careful observation, occasionally making notes on her phone. The morning progresses in a dance of tools and tension, unspoken questions hanging in the air like the scent of motor oil. Around noon, Helen steps out for another call. Through the open door, Mike catches fragments: development timeline, local businesses, community impact. The final piece clicks into place. Porter Industries isn't just buying properties, they're planning to transform the entire neighborhood. And their CEO is sitting in his waiting room, pretending to be just another customer. The question is, why? The old photographs on the wall catch the afternoon light, their frames dusty but proud. 3 generations of Reynolds men stand before the garage in various eras. Mike's grandfather at the grand opening in 1956, his father taking over in 1982, and Mike himself in 2010, all wearing the same determined smile. Helen studies them during a lull, her eyes lingering on the changing cityscape visible in each shot. "Your family has quite a legacy here," she observes, gesturing to the photos. Mike looks up from the Mercedes' engine bay. "Dad always said a garage is more than just a business. It's a community anchor. And how's the community these days?" The question feels weighted, but Mike answers honestly, "Changing. Riverside's got their corporate clients. The tech startups downtown want everything quick and wireless. But there are still people who need their cars fixed right, who can't afford to replace them every 3 years." Tommy returns from helping Mrs. Chen, excitement radiating from him. "Mr. Reynolds, she gave me my first tip." He proudly displays a $20 bill. "Well earned," Mike nods. "How's the Volvo running?" "Smooth as Swedish silk." I double-checked. "Everything just like you taught me." Helen watches the exchange with interest. "You have a good teacher, Tommy." "The best," Tommy agrees. "Did you know he helped me get my grades up too?" "Said I couldn't work here if I was failing math." Mike feels heat rise in his cheeks. Hard to measure tolerances if you can't handle decimals. As he returns to work, something catches his eye in the Mercedes. A small jewelry box wedged under the seat. Opening it reveals a diamond necklace that probably costs more than his annual revenue. "Ma'am?" He holds up the box. "Found this while checking the cabin air filter." Helen's expression doesn't change, but her hand moves instinctively to her simple pearl necklace. "Ah, yes, I was wondering where that went." The moment stretches, heavy with unspoken meaning. Mike knows he's being tested. The necklace would easily cover his outstanding debts. Helen knows, he knows. "Should be more careful with valuable things," he says, handing it over. "Never know who might find them." A genuine smile touches Helen's lips. Indeed. The afternoon progresses, with Helen finding more reasons to stay. Questions about maintenance history, concerns about various noises, each inquiry carefully crafted to extend her observation. Mike begins to understand the game but plays along. Whatever her true purpose, she's watching him, evaluating something beyond just mechanical skill. Tommy, oblivious to the subtleties, continues his enthusiastic learning. "Mr. Reynolds, look, I made a diagram of the intake system. Think it might help other customers understand what we're fixing." The sketch is surprisingly professional, with clear labels and explanations in simple terms. Mike remembers doing something similar at Tommy's age, trying to help his father modernize their documentation. "Not bad, kid. Maybe we could scan it, make copies." Or, Tommy ventures, "I could make it digital. My sister showed me this app for technical drawings." Before Mike can respond, his phone rings. Another bill collector. He steps into his office, the conversation brief but tense. When he emerges, Helen is examining Tommy's diagram with apparent interest. "You have an eye for technical communication," she tells the boy. "Ever consider engineering?" Tommy's face falls slightly. "Can't afford college, but Mr. Reynolds says there's no shame in honest work." "No," Helen agrees, her gaze moving to the photographs on the wall. "No shame at all. But sometimes..." She pauses, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes tradition and progress can coexist." The statement hangs in the air as the day winds down. Mike catches Helen making more calls, each one carefully staged away from earshot. She's thorough. He'll give her that. As evening approaches, Tommy heads home, proudly clutching his tip and talking about adding more diagrams to his growing collection. Mike begins cleaning up, hyper-aware of Helen's continued presence. "We'll finish up tomorrow," he tells her, "unless there's something else you'd like me to check." Helen smiles that measured smile again. "Actually, there is. Tell me, Mr. Reynolds, how long has your family owned this property?" The question catches him off guard. "Since '56. Why?" "Just curious about local history." She gathers her things, including both necklaces. "You know, tradition is valuable, but sometimes—" She glances at Tommy's diagram, still on the counter. "Sometimes it needs help adapting to survive." After she leaves, Mike stares at the family photos, at the changing city behind their unchanging smiles. His father would know what to make of all this. But his father never had to compete with apps and algorithms and same-day service guarantees. In the growing darkness, the neon glow of Riverside's sign seems brighter than ever. The development plans appear innocuously enough, tucked. Inside the morning newspaper Mike grabs on his way to work. Porter Industries announces Innovation Corridor splashes across the front page, complete with glossy renderings of glass and steel buildings, replacing the familiar brick storefronts of his neighborhood. His hands shake slightly as he spreads the paper across his desk. The garage sits squarely in the middle of the proposed development zone. A quote from the Porter Industries CEO, Helen Porter, her corporate headshot, a stark contrast to the woman in his waiting room, outlines a vision of modernization and progress. Tommy bursts in, his usual energy dampened. "Mr. Reynolds, did you see the news?" "Yeah, kid, I saw it. My dad says they're buying up everything. The bodega where my mom works got an offer yesterday." Tommy's voice cracks slightly. "They're talking about relocating all the businesses." Before Mike can respond, Helen arrives, today's carefully crafted disguise including reading glasses and a cardigan. She notices the newspaper but doesn't comment. "How's our patient?" she asks instead. "On schedule," Mike manages, his voice professional despite the turmoil in his gut. "Tommy, let's show her the progress." As they work, more customers trickle in, each carrying variations of the same story. Mrs. Chen's flower shop received a letter. Eduardo's auto parts store got a visit from developers. The neighborhood's anxiety fills the garage like exhaust fumes. Helen observes it all, her practiced, pleasant expression never wavering. But Mike catches her typing rapid notes on her phone when she thinks no one's watching. Around noon, a sleek corporate SUV pulls up outside. Two men in expensive suits emerge, heading for the garage's office. Mr. Reynolds, the taller one, extends a business card. "I'm David Wright from Porter Industries Development. We'd like to discuss an opportunity." Mike glances at Helen, but she's suddenly very interested in a magazine, though he notices her phone's camera angle, suggesting she's recording. "I'm with a customer," Mike replies. "This won't take long." Wright produces a folder. "Porter Industries is prepared to make a generous offer for your property. Given the age of this facility and the changing neighborhood demographics." "Not interested." Mike's voice is firm. "Mr. Reynolds, be reasonable. This area is evolving. Traditional businesses like yours, well, let's just say the market's changing. Our offer is more than fair." Tommy, watching from the bay, drops a wrench. The clang echoes through the suddenly silent garage. "I said no." Mike turns back to the Mercedes. "If you'll excuse me, I have work to do." Wright leaves the folder on a chair. "Review it. The offer has an expiration date." After they leave, Helen finally looks up from her magazine. "Interesting. At timing, is it?" Mike's voice is harder than he intended. She meets his gaze steadily. "You seem upset, Mr. Reynolds. Just thinking about progress and tradition." He picks up the folder without opening it. And who gets to decide which is which? The afternoon drags on, heavy with unspoken tensions. More customers arrive, each bearing similar stories of offers and pressure. Mike helps them all, dispensing, Mechanical advice and quiet solidarity in equal measure. Tommy stays late, his usual enthusiasm tempered by worry. "What are we going to do, Mr. Reynolds?" "Same thing we always do, kid. Fix what's broken." But even to his own ears, the words sound hollow. After Tommy leaves, Mike finally opens the folder. The offer is indeed generous, enough to clear his debts and start fresh somewhere else. But somewhere else wouldn't have 3 generations of history in its walls. Somewhere else wouldn't be home. Helen approaches his office, her disguise slightly softened by the day's wear. Difficult decision? Not really. He hands her the Mercedes keys. "You're all set. Runs better than new." She takes them, hesitating. "Mr. Reynolds, progress doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes it means evolution." "Is that what you call it? What would you call it?" Mike gestures to the family photos. "Legacy, community, things your development plans don't seem to have room for." For the first time, Helen's careful mask slips slightly. "You know that the lady with the broken Mercedes is actually the CEO behind the company trying to buy out the neighborhood." "Yeah, I figured it out. And yet you still fixed my car." "That's what we do here, fix things that others would rather replace." He turns away, ending the conversation. After she leaves, Mike sits in the gathering darkness, the development plans spread before him like a corporate autopsy of his neighborhood. Outside, Riverside Automotive's sign blinks cheerfully, a herald of the future bearing down on them all. His phone buzzes, a text from Tommy. "Found something online about historical business preservation. Can I show you tomorrow?" In spite of everything, Mike smiles. Some things, at least, are worth fighting for. The final bank notice arrives early morning, its red lettering stark against the white envelope. Mike doesn't need to open it. The amount owed has been burned into his memory for months. What's new is the deadline. 48 hours to make payment or face foreclosure. He's still staring at the envelope when Tommy races in, laptop clutched, to his chest. "Mr. Reynolds, you've got to see this." The boy's enthusiasm is a sharp contrast to Mike's mood, but he manages a smile. "What have you got, kid?" Tommy opens his computer, revealing a web page about historical business preservation. "Look, there's this law about protecting legacy businesses. If we can prove the garage has historical significance." "Tommy," Mike starts, "and I found all these old articles about your dad, about how he helped during the '89 earthquake, keeping emergency vehicles running. That's community impact. Plus, I started a social media thing." "Tommy," Mike's voice is firmer now, "it's not that simple." "But the bank doesn't care about history." Mike finally opens the notice, though he hardly needs to read it. "Numbers are numbers." Helen chooses this moment to appear, her corporate mask firmly in place despite yesterday's revelation. "Problem with the bank?" Mike shoves the notice into his desk drawer. "Nothing that concerns Porter Industries." "Actually," she says, settling into a chair, "it might. I've been authorized to increase our offer." Tommy's face falls as understanding dawns. "You're the one trying to buy us out?" "I represent a company investing in this community's future," Helen corrects gently. "By destroying it," Tommy snaps, surprising them both with his vehemence. "Sometimes preservation means adaptation," Helen responds, but her eyes are on Mike. "The new development will include a state-of-the-art automotive facility. We could arrange preferential leasing terms." "Right," Mike interrupts. "So instead of owning my family's business, I can rent it back from you." The silence that follows is broken by the arrival of Mrs. Chen, her Volvo making new, concerning noises. Tommy rushes to help her, shooting a betrayed look at Helen as he goes. Mike busies himself with the Volvo's diagnosis, but his mind keeps circling back to the bank notice. He's always prided himself on finding root causes, fixing problems at their source, but some problems can't be fixed with tools and expertise. Around midday, Tommy approaches hesitantly. "Mr. Reynolds? The social media post about the garage?" "It's Getting attention. People are sharing stories about how you and your dad helped them over the years. Mike glances at his computer. The local community forum is filled with comments. Reynolds and Son helped me keep my delivery van running during the recession. Mike charged me half his normal rate when I lost my job. That garage is part of our neighborhood's soul. Helen appears at his shoulder reading, "Impressive community support." "Support doesn't pay the bank," Mike responds quietly. "No," she agrees, "but it does suggest potential." Before Mike can ask what she means, his phone rings, another parts supplier, calling about overdue payments. He steps into his office, the conversation brief and humiliating. When he emerges, Tommy is showing Helen his social media posts. The boy has created a whole campaign, Save Reynolds Garage, complete with historical photos and customer testimonials. "See?" Tommy points excitedly. "People care about this place. We just need to show everyone why it matters." Mike watches them, his heart heavy. The bank notice in his drawer doesn't care about hashtags or history. "In 48 hours, none of this will matter. Tommy," he says finally, "take the rest of the day off. Go help your mom at the bodega. But please." Something in Mike's voice must give him away, because Tommy's expression shifts from confusion to concern. "What aren't you telling me?" Helen stands, her corporate persona slipping just slightly. "Perhaps I should come back tomorrow." "Don't bother," Mike says. "The car's fixed, the bill's paid, our business is concluded." She pauses at the door. "Mr. Reynolds?" "Mike." Not every change has to mean an ending. After they both leave, Mike sits alone in his office, surrounded by the ghosts of 3 generations. The bank notice seems to pulse in his drawer like a ticking bomb. Outside, the afternoon sun catches Riverside's sign, its modern logo a glimpse of the future bearing down on them all. His computer pings, another notification from Tommy's campaign. More stories, more support, more proof that the garage matters to people. But sentiment doesn't pay bills, and history doesn't stop progress, or does it? Mike pulls out his father's old ledger, its pages filled with careful notes about payment plans arranged, discounts given, community supported. Maybe Tommy's right. Maybe there's something here worth fighting for. But first, he needs to figure out how to survive the next 48 hours. The business magazine appears in Tommy's trembling hands the next morning, its glossy cover featuring a familiar face. Helen Porter stands confidently in a sleek corporate office, the headline reading, "Porter Industries CEO revolutionizes urban development." The contrast between this polished executive and the unassuming woman who'd sat in his waiting room is striking. "I knew I recognized her," Tommy says, his voice tight with betrayal. "My sister's doing a business project about female CEOs. She's worth billions, Mr. Reynolds. Billions." Mike takes the magazine, studying the article. Projects across the country, neighborhoods revitalized, traditional businesses replaced with modern complexes. A pattern emerges, one that always ends with local shops relocated or closed. "She played us," Tommy continues, anger building. "All that time watching, asking questions. She was just studying us like some kind of corporate experiment." Before Mike can respond, Helen herself arrives. She takes in the magazine, Tommy's hostile stance, Mike's careful neutrality. "I suppose we should talk," she says quietly. "Now, you want to talk?" Tommy bursts out. "After lying to us for days." "I never lied," Helen corrects. "I simply didn't volunteer information." "Same thing." "Tommy," Mike interrupts, "why don't you start on Mrs. Patterson's brake job?" The boy hesitates, clearly torn between loyalty and curiosity. Finally, he retreats to the garage bay, though his attention remains fixed on the office. Helen settles into the customer chair, her CEO persona now fully visible. The car really did break down. That part wasn't planned. But staying to watch us, evaluate us, that was. She nods. "I make it a point to understand the communities we develop. Most CEOs rely on reports and surveys. I prefer direct observation." "And what did you observe?" Mike's voice is carefully neutral. A business that matters. A mentor developing future. Talent. A community anchor. She leans forward, but also outdated equipment mounting debt and a rapidly changing market that's leaving you behind. The truth of her words stings, but Mike holds her gaze. So you decided to help by destroying everything we've built? No. She pulls out a folder, different from the development team's offer. I decided to help by offering you a choice. Inside are 2 documents. The first is familiar, the corporate buyout offer. The second, a partnership proposal. Mike reads. Confusion evident. Porter Industries' technical training division is expanding. We need experienced instructors, real-world training facilities. She gestures around the garage, places where traditional expertise meets modern technology. Mike's mind races. You want to turn the garage into a school? I want to turn it into a future. She stands, moving to the wall of family photos. Keep the garage running, but add a training program. Modern diagnostics alongside traditional problem-solving. Porter Industries provides equipment, certification, and student placement. You provide the expertise, the history, the human touch that corporate training centers lack. The idea is seductive, and what happens to the neighborhood? That depends partly on you. She hands him another document, a community development proposal. We need local partners, businesses that can bridge old and new. The garage could be the first. Tommy appears in the doorway, unable to contain himself any longer. We'd still fix cars, of course, but you'd also help train the next generation of technicians, properly funded, properly equipped. She smiles slightly. Though you seem to be doing well in that department already. Mike stares at the proposals, mind whirling. The bank deadline still looms, but this is something his father never imagined. Evolution instead of extinction. Why? He asks. Finally, why all the secrecy, the testing? Because money is easy, Helen replies. Trust, integrity, genuine community value, those are harder to find. I needed to know if you were worth investing in, not just buying out. She reaches into her bag, producing one final document. Consider this a sign of good faith. It's a bank letter. All outstanding loans transferred to Porter Industries, terms to be renegotiated. The 48 hours? Mike asks. No longer an issue? Take your time deciding, but remember. She glances at Tommy, still hovering anxiously. Some traditions are worth preserving precisely because they can teach us how to move forward. After she leaves, Mike and Tommy stand. In stunned silence, surrounded by possibilities neither had imagined yesterday. What are we going to do? Tommy asks finally. Mike picks up his father's wrench, its worn surface reflecting decades of honest work. First, we're going to finish Mrs. Patterson's brakes. Then we're going to figure out how to do right by this place. By all of it. Outside, the afternoon sun catches both signs. His father's faded lettering and Riverside's neon, casting shadows that seem, for the first time, to point in the same direction. Development plans cover Mike's desk like fallen leaves, each page outlining another piece of the neighborhood's proposed transformation. The familiar streets he's known all his life rendered in sleek architectural drawings, everything clean and modern and somehow less real. Mrs. Chen peers over his shoulder, her usually cheerful face creased with worry. They offered triple market value for my shop, she says quietly, but where would my flowers grow between all this glass and steel? Other business owners crowd his office. Eduardo from the parts store, Joe from the diner, Sarah who runs the bookshop. The garage has become an impromptu community center as word of Porter Industries' plans spreads. It's not just about property values, Eduardo argues. These businesses are our lives, our children's inheritance. Tommy bursts in, laptop open. Mr. Reynolds, the social media campaign is exploding. Local news wants to interview us about historical preservation. Mike studies the faces around him. People who've kept their shops open through recessions, natural disasters and changing times. People who, like him, see their work as more than just business. His phone buzzes. Helen, requesting a meeting. The partnership proposal sits heavy. In his drawer, its possibilities both exciting and terrifying. What if, he begins slowly, what if there was a way to grow without destroying everything? He outlines Helen's training center idea, watching hope and skepticism battle across their faces. A compromise, Sarah asks. More like evolution, Mike replies, the word feeling strange on his tongue. But it would only work if we all found ways to adapt. Tommy, who's been unusually quiet, speaks up. Mrs. Chen's flowers could be part of the building's green design. Eduardo's parts store could expand into electric vehicle components. The diner could serve the tech workers and the old neighborhood. The others stare at the teenager, surprised by his vision. What? Tommy grins. I've been thinking about this since Ms. Porter's offer. Change doesn't have to mean ending. A news van pulls up outside, drawn by the growing social media attention. Through the window, Mike spots Helen arriving in her corporate attire, no longer hiding behind her previous disguise. Porter Industries board is meeting today, she announces, entering the crowded office. They're voting on the final development. Plans. The room tenses. Mike stands, decision crystallizing. Then maybe they should hear from the community they're planning to develop. Helen's expression shifts. Surprise, respect, calculation. The board doesn't typically take public comment. Maybe that's part of the problem. Mike gestures to the gathered business owners. You wanted to understand this neighborhood. Here, it is. Real people, real lives, real value that can't be calculated on a spreadsheet. Tommy's phone chimes with another media request. The story is growing, spreading beyond their local streets. The board meeting is in 2 hours, Helen says. Carefully, plenty of time, Mike replies. Tommy, bring your laptop. Mrs. Chen, grab those drawings you made of the rooftop garden. Eduardo, your inventory of vintage and modern parts. Sarah, your community event records. The office buzzes with energy as everyone mobilizes. Years of history, adaptability, and community value gathered into presentations and testimonials. You're really doing this? Helen asks quietly. You offered a choice, Mike reminds her. This is us choosing. Not just survival, but something better. Something that honors the past while building the future. She studies him for a long moment. The board won't like being pressured. Good. In thing I'm used to dealing with pressure. He picks up his father's worn toolbox. Sometimes the best way to fix something is to show exactly how it works. The news crew sets up outside as the neighborhood mobilizes. 3 generations of history preparing to face corporate progress. But this time, Mike realizes, they're not just fighting against change. They're fighting for the right kind of change. Tommy catches his eye, grinning. Ready to make history, Mr. Reynolds? Mike looks at the development plans, the partnership proposal, the faces of his neighbors. No, kid. Ready to build a future. The afternoon sun catches the garage's sign, the faded letters suddenly looking less like a relic and more like a foundation. Sometimes, Mike thinks, the best traditions aren't the ones you preserve in amber, they're the ones you help grow. The partnership agreement sits unopened on the boardroom table, its crisp pages, a stark contrast to the worn edges of Mike's father's logbook beside it. 20 pairs of eyes study him from around the massive table, executives in suits worth more than his monthly revenue. Helen stands at the head of the table, every inch the CEO, despite the slight smile playing at her lips. Mr. Reynolds has a counter-proposal for the board's consideration. Mike takes a deep breath, remembering his father's words. Sometimes the hardest part isn't fixing the problem. It's getting people to understand what needs fixing. Your development plans are impressive, he begins, gesturing to the renderings displayed on the wall-mounted screens. Modern, efficient, profitable, but they're missing something crucial. He opens the logbook. its pages filled with 3 generations of careful notes. This isn't just about property values or profit margins. It's about something that took decades to build: community trust. Tommy, who insisted on coming despite Mike's protests, connects his laptop to the presentation system. The social media campaign fills the screens, hundreds of testimonials, photos, stories of the neighborhood's interconnected lives. Reynolds and Son isn't just a garage, Mike continues. It's where Mrs. Chen gets her delivery van fixed so her flowers arrive fresh. Where Eduardo sources rare parts to keep vintage cars running. Where Sarah's bookshop customers can park safely while attending author readings. He places a modified blueprint on the table. Your training center idea is good, but it could be better. Instead of replacing the neighborhood, let it evolve naturally. The garage becomes a bridge between old and new technology. Mrs. Chen's flowers become part of your green building initiatives. Eduardo's parts expertise expands to electric vehicles. The board members exchange glances. One speaks up. Sentiment doesn't drive shareholder value. No. Tommy steps forward, pulling up market research he's gathered. The most successful tech campuses worldwide integrate with their communities. They preserve local character while adding modern amenities. It's not just good PR, it's good business. Mike watches the boy with pride. Who knew those hours helping Tommy with economics homework would pay off like this? Another board member leans forward. And you believe your traditional approach can adapt to modern demands? Mike pulls out his phone, showing a diagnostic app he and Tommy have been developing. We already are. But we're doing it in a way that brings people along instead of leaving them behind. Helen's smile widens slightly. The Porter Industries Technical Training Division has been seeking a pilot program for integrated community development. This is more than a training program, Mike argues. It's a template. Every city has neighborhoods like ours, places with history, expertise, and community value that shouldn't be erased by progress. Show them how to evolve instead of vanish, and you're not just developing property, you're building future goodwill. The room falls silent as the board processes. Mike can feel the weight of generations resting on his shoulders, not just his family's legacy, but the hopes of an entire neighborhood. Finally, the board chairman speaks. Ms. Porter, you've spent considerable time evaluating this situation. Your assessment? Helen moves to stand beside Mike, her corporate authority somehow strengthened by this alliance with a humble mechanic. Mr. Reynolds represents something money can't build: authentic community trust. We can either bulldoze that and start from scratch, or leverage it to create something unique in the industry. She pulls out a new document. I propose a modified development plan. The garage becomes our pilot program for integrated community development. If successful, we can replicate the model nationwide. Money is discussed, figures that make Mike's head spin. But what catches his attention are the terms about community preservation, about maintaining the neighborhood's character while upgrading its capabilities. Tommy's hand shoots up. What about the apprenticeship program? The board looks startled, but Helen fields the question smoothly. Full funding, with scholarships for local students, assuming Mr. Reynolds agrees to head the practical training department. Mike looks down at his father's logbook, then at the future spread out before him in architectural renderings and corporate proposals. On one condition, he says finally. The board tenses, but Helen's eyes sparkle. Yes? The sign stays. Reynolds and Son Auto Repair, Technology and Training Center. Because some things are worth keeping, even in a changing world. To his surprise, several board members actually smile. The chairman nods. History and progress, not a bad brand message. As the meeting wraps up, Tommy can barely contain his excitement. We did it! Wait until everyone hears. But Mike's attention is on Helen, who's gathering her papers with a satisfied expression. You knew, he accuses quietly. You knew this could work before you ever broke down in front of my garage. I knew it could work, she admits. What I didn't know was if you were the right person to make it work. Had to test that first. With a broken Mercedes. Sometimes the best way to understand someone is to let them fix something you broke. She extends her hand. Partner. Mike takes it, feeling the weight of past and future in the handshake. Partner. The bank statement arrives a week after the board meeting, its crisp pages telling a story of transformation. Where red warnings once dominated, now possibilities bloom. Mike spreads it across his desk alongside Helen's proposal, the numbers finally adding up to something more than survival. 3 applications already. Tommy bursts into the office, waving his tablet. And these aren't just any students, they're from technical schools downtown. They want to learn the old ways alongside the new stuff. Mike studies the training program outline they've spent the week developing. Modern diagnostics paired with traditional troubleshooting, digital interfaces alongside socket wrenches. The past and future finding common ground under his roof. The garage buzzes with unusual energy. Mrs. Chen arranges flowers in the waiting room, her enthusiastic description of rooftop garden plans mixing with Eduardo's detailed inventory of hybrid car components. The neighborhood has caught fire with possibility. Sarah from the bookshop pokes her head in. Channel 5 wants to do a follow-up story, something about community revival in the tech age. Tell them we're busy, Mike starts, but Tommy interrupts. Actually, Mr. Reynolds, maybe we should do it. Show people this can work. Other neighborhoods must be facing the same choice. Mike looks at his apprentice. No, his student, and now somehow his teacher too. The boy's grown in ways that can't be measured with any tool in the garage. Helen arrives for their daily planning session, her corporate polish now familiar rather than intimidating. The contractors want to start next week. Are you ready? The question carries weight beyond construction schedules. Mike turns to the wall of family photos, seeking guidance from 3 generations of Reynolds men. Dad always said a good mechanic knows when to repair and when to upgrade, he muses. Never thought he meant the whole business, though. Tommy pulls up the latest community impact projections on his tablet. Look at these numbers. The training program could help dozens of kids, like me every year, and with the scholarship fund, your father would be proud, Helen adds quietly. This isn't ending his legacy, it's expanding it. Mike picks up an old diagnostic manual, its pages doe-geared from years of use. Beside it sits the tablet loaded with Porter Industries' advanced technical database. The contrast should feel jarring, but somehow it doesn't. I've been thinking, he says slowly, about what you said in the boardroom, about bridges between old and new. He pulls out a sketch he's been working on, the garage layout reimagined. One bay dedicated to classic cars and traditional repairs. Another equipped with the latest diagnostic technology. A classroom space where experience meets innovation. Students learn both, he explains. Not just how to read computer codes, but why they matter. Not just which sensor failed, but how the whole system works together. Helen studies the plan with growing interest. A true integration of methods. More than that, Tommy adds excitedly. It's like preserving wisdom while building something new. The phone rings. Another potential student inquiry. Then Eduardo calls about expanding his parts inventory to include electric vehicle components. Mrs. Chen stops by to discuss incorporating her flowers into the building's green design. The momentum builds, each piece clicking into place like a well-maintained engine. But Mike feels the weight of the final decision approaching. The contracts need signing. The changes need commitment. Sometimes, his father used to say, the hardest part of fixing something is trusting that it'll work. Better than before. Mike looks around his office, at the mix of old and new, at the energy of possibility replacing the staleness of survival, at Tommy's boundless enthusiasm and Helen's careful planning, at a community transforming fear into hope. The decision crystallizes, not with doubt, but with determination. Some traditions are meant to be foundations, not limitations. His father built this place to serve a community, Now it's time to serve that community in a new way. Tell the contractors, he says to Helen, we'll be ready, but we do this right. No shortcuts, no compromise on quality. Just like always, Tommy grins. Mike nods, feeling the future align with the past. Just like always, only better. The business plan sits open on Mike's tablet, its professional graphics and precise projections, a stark contrast to his father's handwritten ledgers. But it's the integration of both, wisdom and innovation, experience and possibility, that gives the document its true power. The first training bay is ready, Tommy announces, practically bouncing with excitement. You should see how the new diagnostic system interfaces with the traditional tools. It's like the best of both worlds. Mike follows his apprentice-turned-assistant instructor into the newly renovated space. The familiar sense of oil and rubber now mixed with the crisp smell of fresh paint and new equipment. Gleaming tool chests line one wall, their drawers organized, with both cutting-edge instruments and traditional tools. Multiple screens display real-time diagnostic data, while a vintage engine stand holds a carefully sectioned motor for hands-on learning. Helen arrives with the first group of potential instructors, experienced mechanics she's recruited from across the city. They're here to learn your methodology, she explains. How to blend traditional diagnostic skills with modern technology. Mike watches as Tommy eagerly demonstrates their integrated approach to the visiting technicians. The boy moves seamlessly between digital interfaces and manual techniques, his explanation combining technical precision with practical wisdom. The computer can tell you the oxygen sensor failed, Tommy explains, but Mr. Reynolds taught me how to understand why it failed, what it means for the whole system, and how to prevent it from happening again. One of the visiting mechanics nods appreciatively. Kids these days usually just want to plug in the scanner and read codes. That's part of it, Mike interjects, warming to his role as lead instructor. But knowing when to trust the technology and when to trust your hands, that's what separates a parts changer from a true diagnostic technician. The visitors tour the facility, asking questions that reveal both skepticism and interest. Mike notices Helen watching him carefully as he handles their concerns, blending his practical experience with the vision they've developed. What about older cars? Someone asks. Not everything has OBD2 ports and sensor networks. Mike grins, leading them to a separate bay where a classic Mustang sits alongside a hybrid Tesla. That's the beauty of our program. Learn the fundamentals on the classics, apply them to modern technology. Understand the principles, not just the procedures. As the day progresses, more visitors arrive. Potential students, community members, even a few corporate investors Helen has invited. The garage hums with activity, each space showcasing a different aspect of their integrated approach. Mrs. Chen has transformed the waiting area into a welcoming space where her plants bring life to the industrial setting. Eduardo's parts department now features both vintage components and the latest hybrid technology. Sarah from the bookshop has helped create a technical library that combines repair manuals from every era. It's really happening, Tommy says quietly, watching the crowds move through their transformed space. Mike feels it too, the shift from concept to reality, from preservation to evolution. He thinks about his father, who taught him that every repair was an opportunity to make something work better than before. A commotion at the front desk draws their attention. A young woman has arrived with a car that stumped 3 other shops. Modern engine, multiple warning lights, but the diagnostic codes don't tell the whole story. Perfect timing, Mike announces to the observing group. Let's show you how this works in practice. For the next hour, he and Tommy demonstrate their integrated approach. Modern scan tools provide data, but it's the traditional diagnostic process, the listening, the testing, the systematic elimination of variables that ultimately reveals the problem. See, Tommy explains to their audience, the computer said transmission fault, but Mr. Reynolds knew from experience to check the ground connections first. Two different kinds of knowledge, working together. Helen steps forward. This is exactly what Porter Industries envisioned. Not replacing experience with technology, but enhancing it, making it accessible to a new generation. Mike watches the faces around him. Experienced mechanics nodding in appreciation, young students eager to learn, community members seeing their neighborhood's future take shape. It's more than just a business transformation. It's the preservation of knowledge, evolved for a new era. Tomorrow, he announces, we start our first official training class. 10 students, 20 weeks, learning everything from carburetors to computer networks. Tommy holds up his tablet. And we're already getting applications for the next session. As the visitors begin to leave, Mike finds himself standing in the center of his transformed garage. The space feels both familiar and new, like a restored classic car with modern upgrades. His father's presence lives on in the methodology, the attention to detail, the commitment to doing things right. Helen joins him, her corporate polish now comfortable alongside his shop-worn appearance. Having any doubts? Mike looks at Tommy explaining their diagnostic process to a fascinated young student, at the seamless blend of old and new throughout the facility, at the community coming together in ways he never imagined. No, he says, finally, no doubts. Just wondering what took us so long to figure out that moving forward doesn't mean leaving everything behind. The renovation blueprints have come alive, transforming the old garage into something both familiar and revolutionary. Fresh paint brightens the walls, where 3 generations of family photos now hang alongside cutting-edge diagnostic displays. But beneath the surface excitement, the first ripples of resistance begin to appear. Another complaint from Riverside Automotive, Tommy reports, holding up his tablet. They're saying our training program is cutting into their business. They've filed a formal protest with the city council. Mike studies the email, noting the aggressive tone. The modern facility down the street hasn't taken kindly to their evolution from struggling competitor to innovative training center. Helen arrives for their weekly progress meeting, her expression concerned. The board is getting nervous. Some members think we're moving too slowly with the full neighborhood development. Too slowly? Mike gestures to their transformed space. We've completely revamped our operation in less than 2 months. Yes, but they expected the other businesses to follow suit more quickly. Mrs. Chen is still debating her rooftop garden design. Eduardo wants to phase his inventory changes gradually. Because they're doing it right, Mike interrupts. You can't rush quality. A crash from the training bay interrupts their discussion. One of the new students, working on an electric vehicle diagnostic system, has damaged an expensive sensor array. The young man stands frozen, fear evident on his face. I'm so sorry, Mr. Reynolds. I thought I understood the procedure. Mike moves to inspect the damage, his mind already calculating the replacement cost. But it's Tommy who speaks first. Hey, remember what Mr. Reynolds always says? Sometimes you learn more from what goes wrong than what goes right. Let's figure out what happened. The moment crystallizes something for Mike. Helen, tell your board, this isn't just about physical renovation. We're building something more fundamental here. Trust, confidence, expertise. That takes time. She nods slowly. I understand that, but corporate timelines need to adapt to reality, Mike finishes. Just like we're adapting to change. Throughout the day, more challenges surface. Some traditional customers worry the garage is becoming too fancy. A few students struggle with the balance between digital and manual skills. Mrs. Chen reports pushback from property developers about her garden plans. But for every problem, Mike sees opportunity. The struggling student becomes a lesson in systematic diagnosis. The concerned customers receive demonstrations of how modern technology enhances rather than replaces traditional service. Tommy proves particularly adept at bridging these gaps. His social media updates show their integrated approach in action, earning attention from technical schools and industry publications. "Look at these engagement numbers," he tells Mike excitedly. "People are fascinated by how we're combining old-school expertise with new technology. That video of you teaching computer diagnostics while using Dad's old testing methods, it's gone viral in mechanic groups." Helen returns in the afternoon with more corporate concerns, but this time she's smiling. "The training division loves your results. They want to fast-track the certification program." "Let me guess," Mike says. "They want it done yesterday." "Actually, they want to do it right. Your insistence on proper progression is proving its value. The students coming out of your program understand both theory and practice. Other training centers are taking notice." As evening approaches, Mike finds himself in the newly renovated classroom space. The walls feature cutaway engine displays next to augmented reality projections. Students' work areas combine traditional tools with tablet interfaces. A note from Tommy catches his eye. "Mr. Reynolds, I had an idea for adding virtual reality simulations to the diagnostic training. But don't worry. We'll still make them change real oil first." Mike chuckles, remembering his own apprenticeship days. His father would have been amazed by these changes, but he would have recognized the underlying principles, the commitment to understanding, the emphasis on doing things right. Looking out at the transformed garage, Mike sees not just physical renovation, but a deeper evolution. Every challenge they face, every resistance they overcome, proves the value of their approach. You can't rush decades of expertise into a corporate timeline, but you can build bridges between past and future. The sound of Mrs. Chen watering her pilot garden project mingles with the hum of diagnostic computers. In the training bay, a student explains a check engine light to a customer, using both digital readouts and traditional mechanical knowledge. This, Mike realizes, is what real progress looks like. Not demolition and replacement, but growth and integration. One lesson, one repair, one success at a time. The corporate memo lands like a bombshell on Mike's desk, its Porter Industries letterhead bearing news that threatens everything they've built. Due to shareholder concerns and market pressures, the board has voted to accelerate the neighborhood development timeline. All businesses must complete their transitions within 30 days or accept standard buyout terms. "They can't do this," Tommy protests, reading over Mike's shoulder. "What about Mrs. Chen's gardens, Eduardo's inventory transition, the training program?" Mike stares at the signature at the bottom, not Helen's. The board has bypassed her. Authority as CEO, citing fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. Helen bursts in, her usual corporate composure cracked. "I just heard. I'm fighting it, but the board's gathered enough votes." "How long have you known this was coming?" Mike demands. Her hesitation is answer enough. "You should have told me. I thought I could prevent it. The training program's success, the community integration, wasn't moving fast enough for your shareholders." The bitterness in Mike's voice surprises even him. Tommy interrupts their brewing argument. "Mr. Reynolds, look at this." He turns his laptop around, showing a flood of social media responses to the news. Former students, customers, community members, all rallying to support the garage and its neighboring businesses. "It's not just local anymore," Tommy explains, scrolling through comments. "Other communities facing similar development are watching. Us, we're becoming a test case for how neighborhood modernization could work." Mike's phone starts ringing. Journalists seeking comment, business associations offering support, even competitors expressing concern about the precedent this could set. Helen paces the office, her corporate mask completely fallen. The board doesn't understand. They see property values and development timelines. They don't see the value of what we're building here. "Then let's show them," Tommy says suddenly. His fingers fly across the keyboard, pulling up data. "Look at our training program results, student success rates, job placements, customer satisfaction. Compare that to standard corporate training centers. Mike watches the numbers populate the screen, his mind racing. It's not just about metrics, though. It's about community, Helen finishes. Trust, the very things I saw when I first came here. She straightens, CEO authority returning. Give me an hour. The board needs to see this firsthand. As she leaves, the garage fills with concerned neighbors. Mrs. Chen brings stress-relieving tea. Eduardo arrives with binders of inventory data, proving the value of their gradual transition. Sarah, from the bookshop, has compiled community impact statements. Tommy, meanwhile, has launched into full digital warfare. His social media updates have sparked a movement. Save the Neighborhood trending locally, then nationally, videos of their integrated training methods going viral in industry circles. Look at these engagement numbers, he says excitedly. People aren't just supporting us, they're using us as an example of how development should work. Mike stares at his father's old toolbox, sitting proudly beside a state-of-the-art diagnostic tablet. Dad always said every problem has a solution. If you look at it right, the next hour brings more allies. Former students share success stories. Local tech workers express preference for the neighborhood's authentic character. Economic experts weigh in on the value of preserving community infrastructure while modernizing. Helen returns with unexpected reinforcements. Board members themselves, drawn by the growing media attention and Tommy's viral campaign. Show them, she says simply. For the next 2 hours, Mike and Tommy lead a tour unlike any before. They demonstrate how traditional diagnostic skills enhance modern technology training. They show Mrs. Chen's pilot garden project attracting tech company lunch crowds. They highlight Eduardo's hybrid inventory system becoming a model for parts suppliers. This isn't just a garage, Mike explains to the watching board members. It's an incubator for something new, something that preserves value while creating it. Tommy jumps in with real-time social media metrics showing the global interest in their approach. Other communities want to know how to do this. We're not just saving a neighborhood, we're creating a template. The board members whisper among themselves, their expressions shifting from skepticism to consideration. One finally speaks. The 30-day timeline was a mistake, Helen interrupts firmly. This is something worth doing right. As the day winds down, the immediate crisis feels suspended, but Mike knows the real work is just beginning. The garage, his father's legacy, stands at a crossroads between preservation and progress. Tommy, ever optimistic, grins at his mentor. You know what this means? We get to fix something bigger than engines. Mike looks around at his transformed garage, at the community rallied around it, at the future they're building together. Yeah, kid, and just like always, we'll do it right. They finish together. The new garage sign installation becomes the day's focal point. Its design a perfect metaphor for their journey. Old-fashioned lettering declaring Reynolds and Son flows seamlessly into modern LED lighting announcing Technical Training Center. The past and future finally finding harmony. Helen stands before the Porter Industries board, her presentation slides showing not just profits and timelines, but faces and stories. Mrs. Chen's rooftop garden drawing tech workers from across the city. Eduardo's parts department becoming a model for hybrid inventory systems. And at the center, Mike and Tommy's training program producing graduates more skilled than any corporate center. We're not just developing property, she argues, pointing to their results. We're creating a sustainable model for community evolution, one that other cities are already asking to replicate. In the garage, Mike and Tommy host their largest class yet. Students cluster around a hybrid vehicle, watching as Mike demonstrates how traditional diagnostic skills enhance modern computer analysis. The sensors tell you what's happening, Mike explains, but understanding why it's happening, that comes from experience, from getting your hands dirty and really knowing how these systems work together. Tommy adds, It's like Mr. Reynolds always says, technology is a tool, not a replacement for knowledge. The students nod, taking notes on tablets while handling traditional tools. One raises her hand. Is it true what they're saying online, that this program might expand nationwide? Before Mike can answer, Sarah bursts in from the bookshop. They're voting, the board's making their decision. The garage falls silent. 2 months of community rallying, of proving their worth, of showing how tradition and progress can coexist, all coming down to this moment. Helen's video call appears on the main training screen. Her expression gives nothing away, but there's a glimmer in her eyes. The board has reached a decision. She begins formally. After reviewing the community impact data, training program results, and significant public support, she pauses, almost smiling. They've voted to adopt the Reynolds model for all future urban development projects. The garage erupts in cheers. Mrs. Chen hugs Eduardo. Students high-five each other. Tommy pumps his fist in the air. Furthermore, Helen continues, Porter Industries is establishing a community integration division focused on preserving neighborhood character while modernizing infrastructure. They'd like you, Mike, to serve as chief consultant. Mike blinks, stunned. Me? Who better? You've proven that progress doesn't have to mean destruction, that the best way forward is to build on what works, not tear it down. Tommy grabs his tablet, pulling up their latest metrics. Mr. Reynolds, look, other developers are already reaching out, wanting to know how we did it. The celebration spreads throughout the neighborhood. Mrs. Chen's flowers appear on every surface. Eduardo breaks out vintage champagne he's been saving. Sarah starts planning a community book about their journey. As evening falls, Mike finds himself in his office, looking at the wall of family photos. His father's face seems to smile with extra pride today. We did it, Dad, he whispers. We didn't. Just save the garage. We made it better. Helen appears in the doorway, having traded her boardroom suit for more casual attire. Having second thoughts about the consultant position? Mike picks up an old wrench, feeling its familiar weight. You know, Dad used to say every tool has its purpose, even old ones if you know how to use them right. Wise man. Yeah. Mike looks out at his transformed garage, at the students learning both old and new skills, at a community that's found its way forward without losing its soul. He also said the best mechanics know when to adjust their methods. Guess that applies to more than just engines. The new sign glows warmly in the dusk, its blended design lighting the way forward. Not just for a garage, but for a whole new way of thinking about progress. So, Helen asks, ready to teach other communities what we learned here? Mike watches Tommy helping a student understand both computer diagnostics and mechanical principles. Watches Mrs. Chen arranging flowers in the ultra-modern waiting area. Sees Eduardo explaining hybrid technology to a group of fascinated old-time customers. Yeah, he says finally. I think we've got something worth sharing. The garage that his grandfather built, that his father preserved, that he transformed, it's become more than just a business. It's become a blueprint for the future, one that honors the past while embracing what's ahead. The training program brochure gleams fresh off the printer, its pages showcasing the unique blend of old and new that has become their trademark. Reynolds Technical Training Center, where tradition meets innovation, reads the cover. Above photos of students working with both classic tools and cutting-edge technology. The first national applications are coming in, Tommy announces, scrolling through his tablet. Mechanics from Seattle to Miami want to learn our integrated approach. And 3 developers have already contacted Porter Industries about replicating our community preservation model. Mike watches his newest class of students practicing diagnostics. In one bay, they're using advanced scanners on a Tesla. In another, they're learning the fundamentals on his father's old training engine. The sight no longer feels contradictory. It feels right. Helen arrives for their weekly planning session, now focused on expanding their success. The Community Integration Division is officially launched. We've had inquiries from 12 cities already. What are they most interested in? Mike asks, though he suspects he knows. Your method, she replies. Not just the technical training, but how you manage to blend modernization with preservation. How you kept the soul of the place while upgrading its capabilities. Mrs. Chen bustles in, her arms full of fresh flowers. The rooftop garden has become a local attraction, drawing tech workers and old-time residents alike. The Community Garden Club wants to help expand to other buildings, she announces proudly. Eduardo follows, carrying his latest inventory report. His parts department now serves as a model for other businesses transitioning to hybrid stock. The suppliers want to know how we manage both vintage and modern inventory so efficiently. Simple, Mike says. We learned from the past while planning for the future. The day unfolds with a steady stream of visitors, other garage owners seeking advice, community leaders studying their model, even a film crew documenting their story for a series on innovative business transformations. Tommy handles the media with natural ease, his understanding of both social platforms and traditional values making him the perfect spokesman. It's not about choosing between old and new, he explains to the cameras. It's about understanding how they make each other better. In the afternoon, Mike receives an email that makes him smile. Tommy's college acceptance letter, along with a scholarship offer. The boys work on their social media campaign and community integration program has caught the attention of several universities. I can still help with the training program part-time, Tommy assures him anxiously. And summers, of course. This place, it's part of who I am now. Mike thinks about his own journey, from struggling to survive to helping shape the future of community development. You'll do both, he tells Tommy, just like we do here. Learn what's new while remembering what matters. A commotion outside draws their attention. The neighboring buildings are receiving their own updated signs, each reflecting the same philosophy of integration. Sarah's bookshop now advertises traditional wisdom and digital knowledge. Eduardo's parts store proclaims, classic to contemporary. Helen observes it all with satisfaction. You've started something here, Mike, something important. We all did, he corrects her. Everyone who believed that progress doesn't have to mean losing our foundations. As evening approaches, Mike finds himself in the training bay, watching the interplay of old and new. Students confidently move between computer diagnostics and mechanical investigation, each skill enhancing the other. The garage his grandfather built, that his father maintained, that he transformed, it's become more than just a success story. It's become a template for how communities can move forward without losing their heart. Tommy joins him, college acceptance letter still in hand. You know what this means, Mr. Reynolds. Everything you taught me about doing things right, about respecting the past while building the future, I get to take that to college with me. Mike looks at his young protege, seeing the same spark of possibility he once saw in his own reflection. Just remember where you learned to change oil before you learned to change the world. The new sign glows warmly in the gathering dusk. Its brilliant blend of traditional craftsmanship and modern technology lighting the way forward. Not just for a garage, but for a whole new way of thinking about progress. The joint venture agreement sits proudly framed on Mike's office wall, its legal language capturing the remarkable partnership between a humble garage and a corporate giant. 1 year to the day since Helen's Mercedes first limped into his lot, the document serves as testament to how far they've come. 5 more cities have signed on to the Reynolds model, Helen announces during their morning meeting. The Community Integration Division is now Porter Industries' fastest-growing unit. Mike glances out at his transformed garage. Students work confidently with both digital diagnostics and traditional tools. Mrs. Chen's gardens have spread across 3 more rooftops. Eduardo's hybrid part system has become a case study in business schools. Remember when we thought this was just about saving one garage? He muses. It was never just about the garage, Helen replies. You knew that, even if you didn't realize it. That's why I chose here to break down. Still can't believe you planned that. Best mechanical failure of my career. Their conversation is interrupted by familiar footsteps. Tommy bursts in, home, from his first semester at college. Mr. Reynolds, wait until you see what I've been working on. He spreads out his engineering project, a new diagnostic system that integrates traditional mechanical principles with artificial intelligence. It's based on everything you taught me. The computer learns from experienced mechanics, building a knowledge base that combines human expertise with digital efficiency. Mike studies the design, recognizing his own methods embedded in the innovation. Your professors approved this? They love it. They say it could revolutionize technical training. And, Tommy grins, Porter Industries' R&D department wants to develop it. Helen raises an eyebrow. First I'm hearing of this. Just came through this morning. They said it fits perfectly with the Community Integration Division's goals. Mike watches his former apprentice with pride. Tommy has grown into the perfect bridge between old and new, just like the garage itself. His social media campaigns have evolved into a nationwide network connecting traditional businesses with modern opportunities. The afternoon brings a steady stream of visitors, other communities studying their model, business owners seeking advice on modernization, students eager to learn their integrated approach. Mike handles them all with the same careful attention he once gave to engine diagnostics. Sarah stops by with advanced copies of her book, The Reynolds Revolution, How One Garage Changed Urban Development. The cover shows the old garage sign, alongside its modern LED counterpart. Orders are already coming in, she reports. People want to know how we did it. We just fixed what was broken, Mike says simply. While keeping what worked, Helen adds. As the day progresses, Mike finds quiet moments to appreciate the details. The way his father's old tools sit naturally alongside modern equipment. How younger students seek advice from experienced mechanics about both computer systems and carburetors. The seamless flow between tradition and innovation. Eduardo brings in a special bottle of wine. 1 year since we thought we were finished. Now look at us. Mrs. Chen arranges flowers while discussing hydroponic systems with a tech startup. Her traditional knowledge of plants has found new expression in modern growing methods. The neighborhood has evolved beyond anyone's expectations. Other businesses have followed their lead, finding ways to preserve their character while embracing new possibilities. The streets buzz with a unique energy, not the sterile modernization they once feared, but a vital blend of past and future. Tommy's social media update pings on everyone's phones. 1 year ago, a broken Mercedes changed everything. Today, we're changing how communities grow, the Reynolds way. Mike picks up a wrench, the same one he used on Helen's car that first day. Its worn surface reflects both fluorescent lights and LED displays, a perfect metaphor for their journey. No, Helen says softly. Some of the board members who opposed us are now our biggest supporters. They say we've found the secret to sustainable development. No secret, Mike replies, just respect. For what works, what matters, what's worth keeping. As evening falls, the garage glows with possibility. Students pack up tablets alongside socket sets. Mrs. Chen's gardens twinkle with solar lights. Eduardo's inventory system updates automatically while preserving his time-tested organization methods. Mike stands in the doorway, feeling the weight of 3 generations in the air. His grandfather's vision, his father's dedication, his own transformation, all part of a continuing story. Ready for another year? Helen asks. Mike looks at Tommy explaining his new system to fascinated students, at the thriving neighborhood around them, at the future they've built from the past they refuse to abandon. Yeah, he says. I think we've got a few more lessons to teach. The wedding invitation sits elegantly on Mike's desk, its design reflecting the same harmony they've achieved in everything else. Traditional calligraphy enhanced by subtle digital elements. Helen Porter and Michael Reynolds request the pleasure of your company. Perfect timing, Tommy says, adjusting his tie. He's taken a break from his summer internship at Porter Industries' R&D department to help with final preparations. The training center's 5th anniversary and your wedding, all in one weekend. Mike straightens his own tie, still uncomfortable in formal wear. Through his office window, he watches students and instructors gathering in the transformed garage. Yard. Mrs. Chen's gardens provide a natural backdrop for the celebration, her flowers cascading from every possible surface. Remember when this all started? Tommy grins. One broken-down Mercedes and a CEO in disguise. Best diagnostic challenge I ever faced, Mike admits. The garage has evolved beyond even their ambitious plans. The Reynolds technical training program has spread to 30 cities, each center combining traditional expertise with modern innovation. Their community integration model has become a blueprint for urban development nationwide. Sarah approaches with a copy of her book's latest edition, now required reading in urban planning courses. They want to know when you'll write the foreword for Volume 2. Still too busy fixing things, Mike replies, but they both know he'll find time. Just as he's found time to mentor new garage owners, advise community programs, and help Helen reshape corporate development policies, Eduardo appears, carrying a vintage bottle of champagne. Found this while organizing the old storage room. Been saving it since your father gave it to me, Mike. Seemed like the right day. The ceremony itself is a perfect blend of worlds. Held in the garage's main training bay, now transformed by Mrs. Chen's floral artistry, it brings together corporate executives and local mechanics, tech entrepreneurs and traditional craftsmen. Helen's board members mingle with Mike's longtime customers, all witnesses to what happens when progress honors tradition. Tommy, serving as best man, raises his glass. To the couple who proved that sometimes the best way forward is to remember where you came from, and to all of us who learned that lesson alongside them. As the celebration continues, Mike finds a quiet moment in his office. The wall of family photos has expanded, now showing not just the past, but the future they've built. His father's old toolbox sits proudly beside Tommy's innovative diagnostic system, neither diminishing the other. Helen joins him, radiant in a dress that manages to be both elegant and practical. Having second thoughts about mixing business with pleasure? Nah, he grins. We already proved that combinations work better than replacements. Through the window, they watch the next generation of students practicing their craft, each one learning to bridge the gap between experience and innovation, between what was and what could be. Mrs. Chen's rooftop garden has become a model for urban agricultural programs. Eduardo's parts department now trains other businesses in hybrid inventory management. Sarah's bookshop hosts both traditional readings and digital publishing workshops. You know, Helen muses, when I first proposed this idea to the board, they said it was impossible, that you couldn't preserve the soul of a place while modernizing it. Guess we proved them wrong. We did more than that. We showed them a better way forward. The celebration extends into the evening, the garage's new LED lighting mixing warmly with traditional lanterns. Tommy's latest social media update captures the moment perfectly. When tradition meets innovation, magic happens. Congratulations to the couple who showed us how. Reynolds way. Mike looks around at what they've built. Not just a successful business or a training program, but a template for how progress can honor the past while embracing the future. His father would have understood. After all, he's the one who taught Mike that every repair is an opportunity to make something work better than before. Ready for whatever comes next? Helen asks, taking his hand. Mike thinks about all the other communities adopting their model, all the future students who will learn to value both tradition and innovation, all the possibilities they've opened up. Yeah, he says. "I think we've got a few more things to fix." The garage that once faced demolition now stands as a beacon of possibility, proving that sometimes the best traditions aren't preserved in amber. They're allowed to grow, adapt, and show the way forward. Just like his father always said, do it right or don't do it at all.